So far we have our front end and back end completely ready to start building our marketplace app. So that means we should go back to front end and start working in the login and registration. So we should work on the register page. This is where everything begins. So when user comes to our site, there will be many pages that will be restricted only for the logged in user. For example, posting a hotel, booking a hotel, all that will require user to log in. So to log in, obviously user have to register first. So let's work on the register page. So head over to client folder. And here, let me show you some of the points we're going to cover. So we are here in the front end. We will be working on the register page. On that page, we will show a form for user where they can enter the name, email, and password. So we will show a form, we will grab the user information, name, email, and password. That information we will send to our backend using Axios, and that this information will be received in our backend in request body. Then our backend will save or create this user based on this information, and then that's how registration will complete. That means once it is done, we will have the user saved in our database. Then the next step would be to allow the user to log in using his password. Okay, so let's work on this register page. Here inside source, we have the auth folder here. We have login register page we already created earlier. So let's continue working here. So the first thing we want to do is create a state, because when we grab the user information from the form, we will need to store that information. For example, user name, email, and password. So const name set name equals to use state, and by default it will have empty string as a value. So you can see I'm using use state, which is React hook. Hooks are basically a function. So to use this hook, you need to first import. So import use state hook from React, and here we have this name, that is the state name. To update this state variable name, we have this method set name. Okay, so let's follow this pattern for email and password as well. Email set email and password. And here now, instead of just showing register page, let's use h1, and let's write here register, and below here we're going to again use a container. I think what we should do here is we're going to have more than one div, so let's use fragments. Okay, so let's paste that div which we had earlier. Container fluid, we don't need to use h1 class name, we're already using h1 here. We can give custom background color if you want. For example, background secondary, it will give you this dark grayish color, and padding all around text center. Okay, and then we can also create another div. Let's call it container class name. So inside container we create a row, and in this row we will show the register form. Now with this form we want to be appear in the middle of the page, so we can use a column class name column medium 6, and then we will have offset of 3 on both sides, so we will see this form right in the middle. So offset md3, so both sides will have 3 and then in the middle 6, so altogether 12 column grid. Now here we want to show a register form. Okay, so I can write the entire HTML form here, or to make things a little bit easier, let's put that in a separate function here. That way we can simply execute that function, register form. So instead of writing everything here, I can write in this function, create the form, and then simply execute this function. So it's a bit your code is a bit neat and easy to read and manage. So const register form equals to, we will create a form here, and later we will be actually moving this to a separate component, but for now let's just use it like so, just to make things easier. Everything will be in one page, so it's much easier for you to follow along. All right, so register form, we can either use curly brace and use a return parenthesis and write our div, or we can just don't use return at all, because it's going to be one element, one single div. Okay, so we use parenthesis and use form, not div, we just use form. Okay, so form, we will have a couple of input fields for name, email, and password. So before we even do that, when the form is submitted, when the button is hit, or user hit the enter in the keyboard, we need to submit this form, right? So let's write that on submit event handler. So when on submit happens, we want to execute a function that will send all this user information to backend so that we can create a user. So we can call that function handle submit, and we need to make sure we have this function const handle submit. Okay, so here we will be sending request to backend, but for the moment let's just use alert, just so that we know everything is working. Send user user info to backend. Okay, so here we will be showing the form. Let me just write this for now. Let's have a look at our progress, make sure everything is working before we continue. Okay, so that looks pretty good. We have register page, we have the title, bit of this styling, very simple, and we have the form, right? So form we have to create obviously, but if you have a look in the console and give it a try, make sure when the form is hit, when the form is submitted, you get the alert. Okay, so inside form, let me just use a button. Type submit, and let's say submit. Let's come here. When you hit this, click on the submit button, you get the alert that says send user info to backend. Perfect. So that means we have everything ready. We just need to write our form and execute this function so that we can send this user information to our backend.